Johnny lives in a family that has eight siblings. His father is not able to work. His mother has to be able to manage the house, and therefore, because he's the oldest boy, he is forced to go out and employ a job so that he can bring financial funds into the family. He goes out and he gets a job. He works odd jobs. Sometimes it pays well, sometimes it don't pay well. But everything, the food, the management of the house, it rests upon this guy, Johnny. He goes home, shares his money. He goes home to a tight house. All his family, all his siblings live in this one small 2-bedroom house. They don't even have a kitchen. They have to figure a way how they can eat every day. Well, Johnny received another job where he's working at the local church, something Adventist church. And there while he works, he understands that there's something different about these people. There's something special about these people. He starts attending church. He continues to work, and he asks them if they can enlist his constant help so that he can have a direct relationship with these people. Working at the church, they tell him that we're going to have a revival starting on Sunday, and we want you to come and attend. And he's also working other jobs, but knowing that little Johnny has to pull the family together, he has to work in order for his family to be able to survive, he takes other jobs. And knowing this, he goes to other jobs, and he ends up coming to church on Sunday for the revival late. I'm not sure who's there to speak for the revival, but does it really matter? Because we don't go to church because of who's speaking. We go to church because we want to hear God.
Amen.
So he goes to church, and he realized that this pastor is preaching with fire. This pastor is preaching with the ability and the authority that God has ordained him. But he looks out into the crowd, and he sees that the people are looking at him funny because, as I said, he has to work often. So he wasn't able to go home and change his clothes, so he looks dirty. He wasn't able to take a shower, so he smells dirty. He doesn't have dental, so his teeth are rotten. He doesn't have enough money because the money that he earns goes to his family, so he's not able to get a haircut. This child of God comes into the house of God, and there are saints there that looks at him with disgust. He goes into the church because he wants to hear God. He goes into the church, and the members are looking at him funny like, why is he here? What's he doing in our church? He looks at him, and he hears and he sees that they are whispering and talking about him instead of them themselves paying attention to who and what the pastor is talking about. So after a while he sits in church, he decides that I'm gonna avoid these people by drawing myself away from them. But the only area that he's able to sit down and where he can listen to the sermon without having to see what the people are doing is a window. He goes to the back of the church and he sits on the window. In this church, there are lamps, because back in this time, there's lamps. They don't have lights like we have. They don't have electricity. They have lamps that are burning from oil. So the church is now hot. The church is cloudy. And he's sitting next to a window because he wants that cool breeze. Well, beloved, he sits on that window and he starts thinking about other things. As he's sitting on this window, he can hear the conversation of the people of the world, the people on the streets talking. He can hear them talk about who won the game last night. He's hearing them talk about the Florida-Georgia game that's going on today and who's going to win the game. Wow. He can hear people talking about the basketball game that just took place this week and the football game that's going to take place on Sunday. And even though this young man, little Johnny, came to church to get a word from the Lord, he has drawn himself away from the word and has drawn himself towards the world. Gracious. He gets so comfortable where he's at that he drifts to sleep. Gracious. And sadly, when he falls asleep, he falls 3 stories and perishes. Our church have many Eutychus. there are many Eutychuses in this church, in this Adventist church, in this world. What are we doing to pull the Eutychus back to church?
Well,
Go with me to Acts, the 20th verse, the 20th chapter. And we're going to start with verse 7. Acts chapter 20. And start with verse 7. I'm reading from the New Living Translation, and it says, on the first day of the week, we gathered with the local believers to share in the Lord's Supper. Paul was preaching to them, and since he was leaving the next day, he kept talking until midnight. The upstairs room where we had met was lit with many flickering lamps. As Paul spoke on and on, a young man named Eutychus, sitting on the windowsill, became very drowsy, and finally he fell sound asleep and dropped 3 stories to the depth below. Paul went down, bent over him, and took him into his arms. Don't worry, he said, he's alive. Then they all went back upstairs, shared in the Lord's Supper, and ate together. Paul continued talking to them until dawn and then left. Meanwhile, the young man was taken home alive and well, and everyone was greatly relieved. This story has a significant relevance to us. The first thing that it says in verse 7, that it lets us know that it's important for fellowship. It is important that we as like believers, Christ-like believers, fellowship with one another. It is important that we eat together, not only a physical meal, but this spiritual meal as well. Here, these people, they come to hear a word from Paul. We've all known that Paul is a phenomenal speaker. I'm pretty sure that there were non-believers or non-Adventists in this church at this time to hear Paul because they had heard about Paul. When we bring fascinating and powerful preachers, don't we invite our friends? There's sometimes non-believers in the church, and just like now, just like then, there are non-believers in the church. So they are fascinated with who this man is and what he's bringing to the table. The room was packed. Isn't it wonderful to go to church with a packed church? Isn't it wonderful for the church to be packed? Because it doesn't just mean that people are there. They are there because they want to receive a word from God. Amen. Beloved, is your heart packed with trying to receive a word from God? You don't only get a word from God here in these holy walls. You get a word from God when you do your Sabbath school lesson, when you do your devotional, when you go day to day and live the way Christ would want you to live. That's how you can fill your heart with God's love, with God's purpose. But the problem was, Paul talked too long. Now, some of y'all probably thinking, oh, this brother ain't talking long today. There's something about a length of time. How is it that we can sit there and waste 4 hours watching the Super Bowl, but we can't sit 2 hours in church? How is it that we can go to the mall and do some strenuous shopping and be there for 7, 8, 9 hours, but we can't come to church for an hour for prayer? How is it that we can go to a basketball game? How is it we can go to the gym? How is it that we can do what we want to do without a care in the world? We don't look at the time. We don't look at the watches. We don't see what time it is. But when we come to church, we check it every minute. It's amazing what we decide to pay attention to when it's not about us.
That's right. That's right.
It's a problem.
That's right.
Now, beloved, if God gives you a word, you do what God wants you to do. But, sometimes it can get too long. So, Paul is preaching for a long time, and you don't want to be in a position of being uncomfortable for a long time. My wife and I just flew from San Antonio yesterday, and it's uncomfortable traveling with a 2-year-old toddler that's moody. It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to be in a position or a place and there's people around you talking and you can't focus on what you want to focus. It's uncomfortable. So, beloved, why did he decide to sit on the window? Sit. Was it because it was so packed in there that he wasn't able to see who was bringing the word? Is it possible that he wanted to be able to get some fresh air, because the way the buildings were back then is you didn't have many windows. You had maybe one door, 2 or 3 windows. So all those people in this building. It's hot. It's probably funky. And he wanted to get somewhere where it has a fresh, cool breeze. And that's the truth, brother. Or maybe he wanted to go somewhere where he can avoid the look that people are giving him. Or maybe he sat at the window because he came to church late and he didn't want people to see that he came to church late. So he sat out on the windowsill. Or maybe because he was just becoming a converted Christian, that he didn't want some people to think that he's a Jesus freak, so he wanted to have one foot in the church and one foot out the church. So the best place you can do it is on a windowsill. Because you see, a windowsill is the only thing on a building that isn't truly in the building or is truly not out the building.
Gracious.
You can sit on the windowsill and have your foot on Christ, but have your foot in the world. The windowsill, you can do a little bit of this and pray a little bit of that. In the windowsill, you can say you love Christ, but when you go outside, you don't act like you love Christ. On the windowsill, you can say you know your Bible, but when they ask you, you misquoting things because you had heard somebody say it, but you never read it for yourself.
Look at.
Too many of us are sitting on the windowsill. This windowsill is symbolic of sitting in a bad spot.
Gracious.
Too many times in our life, you are sitting in a bad spot. If you went to work and they decide to fire you, you are sitting in a bad spot. When you go to church and you claim that you're an Adventist and you claim you're a Christian, but yet they question you and they try you and they test you. But then you got enough of it and you say, I quit. I can't take it no longer. You are sitting in a bad spot. When you go to church and you sit in a position, in a certain spot, and there's people around you that's talking, there's people around you that's distracting you, you are sitting in a bad spot. Beloved, a bad spot is any place that the Lord is not the focus.
That's right. That's right.
A bad spot can be you by yourself in a car, and a thought goes across your mind. You're sitting in a bad spot. A bad spot can be when you're talking to your kids and you slip and accidentally curse, and you look at them and you tell them, do as I say and not as I do. You're sitting in a bad spot.
Wow.
The way this country is being ran right now, where we are allowing same-sex marriage, we are sitting in a bad spot.
Amen.
When we're sitting in a bad spot, it seems that you have such a good view, though.
Gracious.
These are the people that come to church and are able to tell you that, Pastor, that analogy you had, it didn't work with your sermon. Or these are the people that can sit in the church and hear when someone's off note. Or these are the people that sit there and decide, this person got too much on their plate and they didn't bring nothing for potluck. These people are keen in seeing what everyone else is doing but themselves. They are sitting in a bad spot. But the other part about sitting in a bad spot is that things that you have left on the outside are easy to see.
That's right.
When you came to church, when you converted your life, you were still able to see some of the things that you left behind. Some of the friends that you associated yourself with. Some of the people you associated yourself with. Some of the things that you read. Some of the things that you watched on TV. They're all still there, but the people that are sitting in the bad spot on the windowsill are able to see it. But the thing is, what do they do for what they could do? Do they continue to rebuke those things that sit in front of them? Or do they gravitate right back to them?
Gracious.
Do they extend their hand, the Heisman, to them and say, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to pray that God gives me strength. Or do we accept it? Do we as a church become comfortable to where we allow certain things to occur rather than stand on the principle, stand on the ground with who we are? We are Seventh-day Adventists. Too often we are sitting in the bad spot and we choose to do the wrong thing. When you're sitting in a bad spot, you feel like it's okay to do unchristlike things because you feel like you have control. Well, I'm gonna just go here and watch this on TV because I'm not gonna get all hooked on it, you know, because I'm steady in the word. You know, I can remember when in my younger days I used to watch a show called Charmed. It came on TNT. I love that show. But basically it was a show about witches and demons and demonic things. I loved the show. And I remember coming home watching it, and my dad came up and he's like, "Why are you watching that?" I was like, "What's wrong with it?" He's like, "Because there's witches and stuff in there. Why are you watching it?" I'm like, "You ain't got to worry about it. I know witches ain't real. I know demons are real, but I know witches ain't real. It's not going to affect me. It's not going to damage me. It's not going to harm me." And beloved, you know what I ended up doing? I started looking at Charm before I even prayed.
Gracious.
I started looking at Charm and subliminally started thinking, I wonder if I was able to. What could I actually do? The devil has an awesome way, and I say awesome because it's amazing how he's able to trick us.
That's right.
Some of us think that we're so comfortable with where we're at. The devil can never do nothing to us. But beloved, he tempted and tricked angels.
That's right.
So who are we?
That's right.
When you're sitting in a bad spot, it is a dangerous position for a Christian to be in. Because when we're in this spot, we can get lulled to sleep with what the devil does to us and does before us. Just think, do you think Eutychus sat on the window too far? Just think, did you plan on sinning? Now, before you think about it, sometimes we do plan on sinning. But there's also times that we don't have, let me not say that. It's not true. Some of us plan to sin and some of us don't. It's that simple. Some of us plan on sinning and we know we're going to do it, but we try to make rational reasons why it's okay for us to do it. But then you have those people that we don't realize we're sinning. I remember my brother and I, you know, we learned about the word deception. We didn't know deception was a form of lying. But we learned. But does that mean we didn't sin? God winks at our ignorance, but some of us know good and well what we're doing. But did Eutychus go to the windowsill too far? Who sins just to fall? The devil creates an illusion to make it seem like it's comfortable. The devil creates a situation where he's going to play on your heart to see if you're going to take the bait or are you going to take God. Job was set up. Job was set up for a windowsill, and what did he do? He chose God. Abraham was set up for a windowsill, and sometimes he chose God, but sometimes he chose the windowsill.
Right.
Adam and Eve was given a windowsill, and what did they do? They chose the windowsill. If we look back in our life, all of us have chosen the windowsill at some point in time.
That's right.
But the truth is, the windowsill, truthfully, is not comfortable. It may seem comfortable, but if we're about Christ, it's uncomfortable. One of the other interesting things is in Luke, made it clear that he fell 3 stories. Now, why is this significant? What it told me was, no matter how high you are in your walk with Christ, no matter how low you are with your walk with Christ, the highest and the lowest are just as easy to fall.
That's right.
It doesn't matter. Sin is sin.
That's right.
Too often we all classify sin. Oh, you did a white lie. That's an okay lie. But then you can tell